this guy wrote to you to suggest that you should write more.
Yes, he said he'd read the first book, was astonished to find that everybody was carrying on as if it never happened, and he kept on writing, waiting for me to write another one. And I wrote back and said, well, I've said everything I've got to say about that, and it seems to have been wrong. You know, there must be some reason why they turned it down. But he kept on saying, no, you must have more to say. You can't let them get away with it like that, just ignoring it. And then he wrote to a lot of the people that were the sort of heads, that most famous in evolutionary circles, and said, why can't we believe it? I mean, what's wrong with it? Why is nobody taking any notice of it?
It's amazing for him to do that, isn't it? I mean, that's,
yes.
that's you know, good for him for doing that. I mean, so he just read the book and thought, this all makes sense.
This all makes sense, and he couldn't understand. Well, I couldn't understand either, but assumed that they had good reason. They couldn't be bothered to.
It's the Americans for you. They're not just taking it. You just accepted it.
Yeah. But so then I could tell by the answers he was getting that there was no particular reason why it was impossible for me to be right. I mean, they just said it's improper science, and nobody believes it. I mean, the fact that there was such a strong consensus, of course, made them all feel more certain, because whenever they looked around, all the people in their own circle felt the same. This is farce.
It's the lemming mentality. You want to be the odd one out. So the Scars of Evolution. Then you wrote that book, and that was what that was trying to sort of get down in black and white the form, because this was the first time anyone had done this, wasn't it? Because the Descent of Woman wasn't only about the Aquatic Ape Theory, was part of it.
No, it was partly a political track, which again made people dismiss it, say it's politically motivated. I mean, she's just twisting everything to suit the feminist cause. The Aquatic Ape was a thing which I wrote in response to Chuck saying, because I thought, well, since then there have been new ideas about why we are naked and so on, largely Stephen Jay Gould's ideas about neoteny and so on. And I had heard some arguments used against it, which I didn't think held water. So I tried to say that this is not incompatible with what Stephen Jay Gould's ideas about neoteny, but neoteny is just a mechanism by which changes are brought about, not the reason for the changes. And so that had a slightly less hostile reception, but the reception from the scientific community to all of them, almost up to the present moment, has been to pretend it didn't happen, ignore it altogether. But that did have actually a little review in Nature.
Was this book written post or pre-natal Lucy? Because Lucy was discovered in '74. So this was this after that?
Must have been, yes.
So was that sort of another factor that encouraged you, or were you going to do it anyway?
I didn't give much. I didn't give much space to Lucy. I don't remember writing much about Lucy in that book.
Because that, as you said in the books I've read, is a massive vindication or bit of evidence. And I think you wrote that if Lucy had been discovered before the Tan Child, then maybe the Aquatic Ape Theory would have been the de facto standard for decades already.
Yes, that's right. Well, I mean, I felt that Lucy, to me, was on our side, but not everybody felt that. And of course, Johansson himself and Tim White, they didn't think, this proves the equality.
Well, I mean, their book on the subject, there's a whole chapter, isn't there, about why Lucy walked, and it's not even a possibility.
No,
I just can't believe that. I mean, they discovered that she was lived by a lake, and it didn't even enter their minds that perhaps that might be the reason. It's just incredible. So when you wrote the Aquatic Ape, then that wasn't primarily because of Lucy. It was kind of it was going on, but you maybe
It was a response to prodding from Chuck. I mean, do you still believe it yourself? In fact, he was asking. So I thought, well, yes, I don't see there's any reason why it's wrong. And if I write it in terms that are not flippant and not funny and not feminist, perhaps they will look at it. Of course they didn't, but that was the idea.
When you wrote it, did you understand the sort of historical significance that this was the first time the theory had been formally presented as a topic of the book in its own right?
No, I just felt, well, I mean, this is what some people have been waiting for, is have you learned anything since then? That makes you think you were wrong. And an attempt to sort of, the other thing I'd met in America was a sort of great letter of congratulations from the Mark Twain Society about this tremendous hoax that I put over. Because I obviously knew it was nonsense. I was just pulling their legs.
Oh, right.
Well, so I thought, well, with the Aquatic Ape, I will try to make it plain that I'm quite serious about this.
That's incredible.